In the spring of 1918, the world was already on fire. 4 years of the Great War had devoured 10 million men. Empires teetered. Cities mourned. Mothers learned to live without sons. But something else was coming. Something that moved faster than artillery shells. Something with no allegiance to any flag. Soldiers called it the 3-day fever. Doctors called it influenza. History would call it the greatest pandemic in human history. $50 to 100 million dead in 2 years. More than the entire First World War. This is the story of how the world got sick, and how, against every odd, it found its way back. At 7 o'clock in the morning on March 4th, 1918, a company cook named Albert Gitchell walked into the camp infirmary. He had a sore throat, a fever of 104, a pounding headache. The doctor noted him as a routine case and sent him to bed. By noon, 107 soldiers had reported the same symptoms. By the end of the week, 522. He had no idea he was patient zero for the deadliest plague of the modern age. Camp Funston held 56,000 troops. It was one of the largest military installations in the United States, and in the spring of 1918, tens of thousands of those soldiers were being shipped across the Atlantic to fight in France. They carried their rifles, their rations, their letters from home, and, unknowingly, the virus. Here is one of history's great ironies. The Spanish flu did not begin in Spain. But because Spain was neutral in the war, its press was uncensored. When the flu hit Madrid and killed King Alfonso XIII's aides, Spanish newspapers reported it freely. The warring nations, desperate to maintain morale, suppressed their own outbreaks. And so the world blamed Spain for a disease it did not create. This story will return to again and again. The politics of fear, and the lies that cost lives. The Spanish flu struck in 3 waves. The first in spring of 1918, mild, widespread, almost overlooked. The second, autumn 1918, catastrophic, mutated, a biological apocalypse. The third, winter into 1919, slower but still lethal. Most pandemics weaken over time. The Spanish flu did the opposite. Its second wave was more lethal than the first. Why? That answer will change everything you think you know about how diseases spread. 200,000 people lined Broad Street for the Liberty Loan Parade. City officials had been warned by Public Health Director Wilmer Cruzen that the flu was spreading. He held the parade anyway. Within 72 hours, every hospital bed in Philadelphia was full. Within a week, the city was running out of coffins. Bodies were stacked in the streets. Priests drove wagons through the night, collecting the dead. 1918 is now considered one of the deadliest public health decisions in American history, and it raises a question we still face today. When does civic duty become civic danger? Normal influenza kills the very young and the very old. The classic U-shaped mortality curve. The 1918 flu produced something terrifying, a W-shaped curve. It killed infants, it killed the elderly, and it killed people aged 20 to 40, the strongest, healthiest segment of the population, at catastrophic rates. The leading theory? Their robust immune systems overreacted, what scientists now call a cytokine storm. The very strength of their bodies became the weapon that destroyed them. A healthy immune system hijacked into attacking its own lungs. Your own immune system, the thing designed to save your life, became the thing most likely to kill you. The 1918 flu didn't just attack the weak, it hunted the strong. Rain on mud, men coughing in the dark. In the trenches of the Western Front, men were already dying by the thousands each week. Now they faced two enemies: German artillery and invisible contagion. British General Erich Ludendorff later wrote that his catastrophic failure at the Second Battle of the Marne was partly due to the flu decimating his officers. The pandemic may have shortened the war. The irony? The war certainly spread the pandemic. Millions of men crowded into ships and trenches and camps, perfect incubators for a new strain of influenza. The virus and the war fed each other. Both devoured the same young men. Both left the same widows behind. If the pandemic had a heart of darkness, it was India. 12 to 17 million Indians died. Some estimates go higher. In a single month, the subcontinent lost more people than the United States lost in the entire war. Villages were found where every adult had died. Children wandering alone. Crops unharvested in the fields. The Ganges, sacred river of life, carrying bodies to the sea. India lost more people in the 1918 flu than any other nation on Earth. But for decades, this toll was barely mentioned in Western history books. Why does the world remember some dead and forget others? The SS Yaroslav docked at Cape Town in September 1918, carrying troops returning from East Africa. Within weeks, South Africa recorded 300,000 dead, in a population of 6 million. The city's black residents, already living in overcrowded, under-resourced townships by colonial design, died at 5 times the rate of white residents. The 1918 pandemic didn't just reveal a virus, it revealed every crack in every society it touched. Poverty, racism, colonialism. The flu found them all and made them worse. Perhaps the most devastating single statistic of the entire pandemic. Western Samoa lost 22% of its entire population in a matter of weeks. Nearly 1 in 4 people on the islands, dead. American Samoa, just miles away across the water, suffered 0 deaths. The difference? American Samoa's naval governor immediately closed the ports and imposed quarantine. Western Samoa's New Zealand administrators were warned. They ignored it. Every death in Western Samoa was preventable. The history of this pandemic is also the history of choices and the catastrophic cost of the wrong ones. In the remote villages of Alaska, entire communities ceased to exist. The Inuit village of Brevig Mission lost 72 of its 80 residents in 5 days. 80 years later, scientists would travel to Brevig Mission and exhume bodies from the permafrost. What they found, frozen in the Arctic ice, would unlock secrets about the virus that changed the science of infectious disease forever. The frozen dead of Brevig Mission would one day help save millions of lives. The victims became the scientists. The tragedy became the cure. History is made of numbers, but behind each number, a face, a name, a story. From a letter written by a U.S. Army nurse, October 1918. We ran out of morphine on Tuesday. We have no more masks. I have not slept in 3 days. The boys keep asking for their mothers. I tell them their mothers are coming. God forgive me. Medicine in 1918 was a different world. Antibiotics had not yet been discovered. Penicillin was still 10 years away. Doctors had no antiviral drugs, no ventilators, no understanding of what a virus even was at the cellular level. Treatments included whiskey, camphor oil, castor oil, bloodletting. Some prescribed turpentine rubbed on the chest. One British physician suggested large doses of quinine, which treated malaria, not influenza, but desperation overruled science. From nothing but a stethoscope and hope. That is the world these doctors lived in, and they showed up anyway. In the playgrounds of American cities, children were singing a new skipping rhyme. I had a little bird, its name was Enza. I opened up the window, and in flew Enza. Children processed what adults could not explain. They turned the terror into rhythm, into song. Some of those children were orphans by the time the rhyme died away. Throughout this documentary, we keep returning to the same truth. Humanity finds ways to sing even in the dark, even when the dark is very, very deep. At 11 o'clock in the morning, on the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, the guns fell silent. The Great War was over. Across Europe, people poured into the streets. They wept, they danced, they held each other. And in doing so, they spread the flu. The armistice celebrations triggered a new surge of infections in cities across the world. The war had ended. The pandemic had not received the memo. The day the war ended was also the day the pandemic got worse. Humanity had survived 4 years of industrialized slaughter. It would spend the next year fighting an enemy it couldn't see. In January 1919, the leaders of the world gathered in Paris to negotiate the peace. Woodrow Wilson, idealistic, powerful, the architect of the 14 points, collapsed from the flu during the negotiations. His physician noted sudden personality changes, confusion, tremors, irrational rages. Historians have debated ever since. Did the Spanish flu change the Treaty of Versailles? Did Wilson's illness make him capitulate to Clemenceau's harsh demands on Germany? Did a microscopic pathogen help set the stage for the rise of Adolf Hitler? Some historians believe the Spanish flu may have indirectly caused World War II. If Wilson had not fallen ill, would the Treaty of Versailles have been different? Would Germany have been humiliated into extremism? We cannot know, but we must ask. By 1920, the Spanish flu was fading, not because it was defeated. Viruses don't get defeated, they evolve. It faded because enough of the world had been exposed, enough immunity had built, and the lethal strains had burned through their fuel. What came next was something extraordinary. A world that had survived both the worst war and the worst pandemic in modern history decided to live. Spectacularly, recklessly, joyfully. They called it the Roaring Twenties. Here is one of the most analyzed mysteries in modern history. Why did the Spanish flu disappear from collective memory almost immediately? Part of it was trauma suppression. The survivors simply didn't want to talk about it. Part of it was shame. Many felt guilt about who lived and who died. Part of it was the war. A pandemic that killed 50 million was somehow overshadowed by a war that killed 20 million. And part of it was the simple human desire to move forward, to dance, to drink, to pretend it hadn't happened. The survivors of the 1918 pandemic mostly never spoke of it. They put it away. They built the Jazz Age on top of it. What does it mean when a civilization chooses to forget its wounds? In 1933, the first flu vaccine was developed in 1938. The concept of public health infrastructure, hospitals, surveillance systems, international health cooperation, was fundamentally reshaped by the memory of 1918. In 1948, the World Health Organization was founded. One of its first mandates? Ensure that what happened in 1918 could never happen again without the world being ready. The dead of 1918 built the public health systems that would protect billions who would never know their names. In 2020, a new coronavirus swept the world. Epidemiologists immediately reached for a single comparison: 1918. The cities that had imposed quarantines in 1918 fared better than those that didn't. The nations with robust healthcare systems buried fewer dead. The communities that trusted science recovered faster. 102 years later, the lessons of the Spanish flu were not history. They were instructions. Every pandemic in history has tried to teach us the same lesson. The question is never whether we will face another one. The question is whether we will have listened. Between 1918 and 1920, somewhere between 50 and 100 million human beings died. Each one had a name, a family, a dream they didn't get to finish. The world they left behind rebuilt itself. It was scarred, it was changed. It carried grief it couldn't always name, but it rebuilt. It built jazz clubs and skyscrapers and vaccines and the United Nations. It built antibiotics and intensive care units and global health surveillance. It built the concept that one nation's pandemic is every nation's emergency. The Spanish flu killed millions, but it could not kill what makes us human: the stubborn, magnificent refusal to stop. We close with a world rebuilt from the ash. Every generation faces its defining catastrophe. Every generation has to decide, who do we want to be when it's over?